loro, via lontani.
I call graffiti a viewing mechanism, which is just another way of saying a lens, which is to say that I have to sort of be considering graffiti when I look at anything, because it's sort of like my primary sort of aesthetic reference and experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be a piece of graffiti for it to reference graffiti for me. It doesn't necessarily have to be by a graffiti writer for it to be about graffiti.
This is the first museum exhibition in Italy to focus on the relationships and mutual influences between graffiti and contemporary art. There have been quite some exhibitions on graffiti before, but with a specific focus on the movement and another curatorial interest. And instead of historicizing graffiti as an outsider practice, we aim to exemplify how graffiti can be regarded as, first and foremost, as a way of looking at urban realities and urban landscapes, and also as part of a timeline of spray painting in the history of art.
Graffiti is also the first exhibition under the new research line called The Softest Heart, which explores art as a non-violent form of resistance within the urban and social space. We all know graffiti from the big spray writers from the 80s. What happened at the time of the 80s when the cities, the big urban cities, started to gentrify and change, these artists almost immediately started to also tag canvases. And what is so incredible about the Dutch museums, there are several who started to collect these canvases quite early on. And those canvases we were lucky enough to be able to loan from the Centraal Museum, who now has like quite an extensive collection of these historical spray-painted canvases. These works are now the only account that is left of those practices, because as you go to New York at the moment, it's all sanitized and cleaned. So they end up to be an incredibly important witness to this extensive activist movement.
Graffiti is painting, but it's also very much drawing. I think the fact that graffiti is done with paint kind of relegates it a bit more to painting than it does to any other artistic medium. And so I think that graffiti writers gravitate most quickly to painting and being painters. Painted line is almost like it's like a wire, it's like a conduit, it's like a line which is capable of containing so much information. And I think that it is strictly coded first and foremost with this idea of rebellion and youth culture before anything else.
The exhibition begins with works by renowned artists from the United States or Europe who experimented with spray paint from the 1950s onwards. Spray cans were patented in the United States in 1951, and the artists started in the haze of abstract expressionism and minimalism, started to experiment with this new tool. And then the exhibition develops further and goes into examples of works on canvas by key graffiti writers from the 1980s. In the 80s also artists started to collaborate very closely with the graffiti scene, such as artists like Martin Wong or Keith Haring or Jenny Holzer. And the exhibition further explores how a simple line of spray paint, ever since modern graffiti started and developed, a simple line of spray paint on canvas would always remind and immediately be associated with urban youth culture, with rebellion, with everything that graffiti became to mean. And so the exhibition also explores how contemporary artists in various media in various ways have incorporated graffiti into their practice.
The way this show is curated, there's 2 floors. The 3rd floor is organized as a painting show, and it's kind of a chronological painting show. And it really, again, is sort of an investigation of spray paint, how spray paint interfaced with painting, then with graffiti, what happens to art when graffiti is slightly in the rear view, but still very much part of the deal, and then as it moves sort of more into contemporary art studio practices. Then the 3rd floor also goes into graffiti writers who have active studio practices and sort of what that means, what that looks like, and how then does that interact and correspond with other more kind of typical contemporary studio practices. And so yeah, it's really, the 3rd floor is really a painting show. Then the 4th floor is kind of a little city, I would say. Graffiti and architecture are sort of codependent, like they're necessary for one or the other to exist. Without architecture, graffiti is just vapor. And so for me, what I've seen is architecture being treated as sculpture by artists and graffiti interfacing with sculpture in that regard. One thing about exhibitions, and just going back to talking also about looking, is you want to see something new. You want to see something you haven't seen before. And from the very first discussion about this show, there was an idea to put things together that had never been put together before, that didn't belong together, that were almost impossible to put together. And you know, I think that it's very satisfying for me, as with the level of involvement in a show that I've had, to see on the exact same wall, you know, just very, very close to one another, you know, like Charlotta Posenenska and Quick, you know, Blade and Carol Rama. I don't necessarily know that there was a exhibition that was going to establish these connections. And now not only are they connected by an exhibition, they're connected by architecture. You have to walk from one to the next in order to view the show. But that does go for the entire show. It's about putting things which may or may not even feel like art into an art exhibition. I also understand that graffiti is not something that people agree upon as being an art, that people would agree upon as being like worthy subject matter. It is vandalism, it is a crime, it's against the law. It's not necessarily this thing that's like going to be celebrated by everybody.